Right, let's do something really cool. I'm going to show you how to create a tool just like this one here, where you can randomly generate sprite characters, and then you can also export them as a full image or as a, in this example, 16 by 16 sprite that you can use in your games or anywhere else that you want to use a sprite. For this you'll need Visual Studio Code, and really that's about it. You'll want to open a folder, and I'm going to come into here. I'll create a new folder, just call it whatever you want, doesn't matter, and we'll open that up, select, and you won't see anything here. You'll just see big empty workspace, and we can start adding. So let's add our index HTML, because this is just going to be built using HTML canvas and a wee bit of JavaScript. So just set up the HTML. We need the HTML head. Oh shit. Declare the car set. Just title to show at the top of the tab, doesn't really matter. And then we'll open our body, and to set up a canvas, you just need to declare a canvas like this. Name it, give it ID canvas as well, and maybe we'll just give it a height and width as well. So we'll do height 300, width 550. And we're also going to want the buttons, so I'll just set up a div underneath. And this one can be the randomize button. Why can you not duplicate a line on Visual Studio Code? And then we'll do export sprite for the 16 by 16, and then export full for the full size. Export something like that. Now next step, we're going to want to set up HTTP server and run the HTML there, just to avoid any cause issues with the content that we use. So you'll need to have Node.js installed for this, and from there we can then run npm install http server -g. This will install HTTP server for you, and I'm not going to bother running that. If you run that, that'll install the package. We can then navigate to the folder that we're using to contain all the files in. So if you're using Visual Studio Code for this, which I recommend, you can just right click your HTML file, click copy path, use CD, change directory, and then paste that in and just get rid of the file, the name of the file. Just use your directory. We'll change directory to there, and then we can just do HTTP server to open it up, and you see here it's been run on localhost port 8080. So I've already opened that up. I'm ahead of the game here, man. And if you open that port up on localhost, you see here we've got something that looks like shit and it won't do anything. So let's fix it up. So to do that, let's create styles.css, which will just be regular style sheet. We can then just add a reference to that in. So in your head, just add a link with the relation being style sheet, and then just your style CSS as the reference. And if we come in here, I don't really want to do too much just now, but I want to definitely change up the body, so we'll add a bit of padding to the top. Don't know, 100 pixels maybe. Change the background colour, and don't know, purple. Oh, that's a bit crazy, I don't know about that. Palette turquoise, let's go with that, and we can refresh. That's a wee bit better, that's fine. So obviously we kind of see the canvas, so let's just fix that up a bit. So I'm just going to make it white, and I'll put a wee box shadow as well. Let's do box shadow. We'll make 0 just around the outside a wee bit, and then we'll just make it faded, not quite full alpha. Change the display to block, just so when we add in an auto margin, we can just center it. Let's refresh, and that's looking alright. Cool, but it'll still not do anything. So I want to center these buttons like I've got here. So if you add in class container just to the div that contains all the buttons, and then I'm just going to paste these styles in here from a wee cheeky notepad that I've got. So we just want to change the display type to being a table, and then just add a wee bit of padding to space it out from the canvas, and then just auto that X margin, and then it'll just sit underneath here, which is quite nice. Obviously the buttons do hee-haw, so let's sort that. One more thing that we actually need to do is we need to add some sprites, obviously. So let's go again into the left hand side and create a new folder. We call that assets. That's just going to hold our sprites. So for the sake of simplicity and just showing you how this actually works, I'm just going to use 3 different body parts. So we're going to use our body. No, don't do it like that. Need a new folder in here. Call that body. We have another one called face, and one more. What could we do? Detail. I'm probably going to draw the shittest sprites you've ever seen, so let's do that. Okay, let's go for paint. So I'm just going to do a big smiley face. Maybe one will be, oh, can I do that? Right, I want solid colour and no outline. Why shorten that a wee bit? Yeah, big orange one, right? Oh no, that's not working because it's colour too. Big orange face. Cool. Now bear in mind when you do this, your white background's coming with this, so when you export you will be getting a white background. Obviously I'm just doing this to show that you can do this with any tool. If you've got Photoshop or you've got Sprite or something else where, I mean, it's a bit, there's a bit more, there's some better tools involved, then go for that. but for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to show you that it can be done in Paint with the bare minimum. I'm going to cut, let's see, just in case you're not listening when you're editing this, cut all that because you can't use Paint. I'm an idiot. So we're back. So with that said, let's make some sprites. So I mean, you can use Int, you could use Photoshop if you've got it. I use Pixel Edit. It's a nice wee tool that I've used for years now, to be honest. Ace Sprite, whatever you want, go for it. So we're going to do 16 by 16, and by no means is this the best way to do this. I know that you could use a sprite sheet, being a wee bit defensive now, aren't I? You could use a sprite sheet. I just wanted to do it as individual images for the sake of simplicity, as always. So I don't even know what I'm drawing here. Let's just keep it mega simple, right? I'm just going to draw wee faces. So this is going to be face number 1. Don't be shocked if I pause the video here because well, that's his body actually. I'll save you from a shitty drawing, but I'm basically just going to draw. Here you can see my directories. I'm going to be drawing 3 of each, and then I'll be back. Okay, so you just want to make sure when you're saving these, each image should be its own entity, obviously, because you're going to be stacking these on top of each other. So like if you've got, like me, you're doing a hat for the detail, save the hat on itself, but just use the same image size, which I'm doing is 16 by 16, and then the same for a face, save it on its own, same for a body, same on its own. Then when they all come together, when we add a bit of JavaScript, it'll look something like this. Right, so I've done that now, so you'll see here 3 body, 3 details, and 3 face, and then like it's obviously going to be very small because it is 16 by 16 pixels, but don't worry about that just now. We'll just need to upscale it when we draw it in the canvas. So let's fire in some JavaScript. So we'll just add scripts.js, and we'll need to assign that in the HTML. So outside the body, which actually you might have caught on that I knackered this, but that div should be inside the body, and then when we come out the body, we can just add a script and pass the source as the scripts.js. Now when we come into the scripts.js, we just want to first of all assign the canvas. So we'll do document and then just get element by ID, and then we called ours canvas. Let's double check, ID canvas, so that's fine. And then you also, when you're using canvas, you want to get the canvas context, which just allows you to manipulate it basically. So get context, why is that not showing? Get context, and then pass in 2D, which will grab the context of the canvas which we're referencing. And I'm going to copy and paste this in because I did find it in Stack Overflow a wee while ago. This is for basically allowing us to upscale our, if you're using pixel art, you'll want to be able to upscale the pixel art when you're showing the sprites on the web view. Obviously when you export them, you want to save them as 16 by 16 if you're using it for a game. However, when we're showing it here, we're going to want it to be bigger, otherwise we're not going to be able to see it. So when we upscale it, it will go blurry by default. So this will just allow us to, you know, keep the blocky edges of the pixel art and not blur them when we upscale. So one more thing I want to do here is I just want to say let's come up with a better name for that. Sprite parts count. That's a shit name. Obviously you can split this out if you've got maybe 5 bodies and 2 faces. Everything here's 3 though, but this is just going to be a limit for when we pick a random number. So just a few more things to declare here. So image URL, which is just going to be an empty array just now. Same for images, and I'll explain all these as I go. So image URL is just going to be the route to these images, and then images is going to be the actual like image on the canvas. So I'm just going to create a new function here. To create a sprite. So first what I want to do is I want to clear everything on the canvas to avoid just old sprites being drawn across each other. Basically what you need to do is, and when you're developing games with HTML canvas, you need to manually clear the canvas. So if you're animating a character moving, if you just keep drawing the character at new positions, it's just going to draw on top of the old one. You just have tons of characters running about, so you need to clear it and then re-render it all manually, and obviously game engines do this for you. Canvas obviously doesn't. So let's now get random values. So, and again, this is not the best way to do this. You can definitely clean up and optimize the code, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just do it really shit. So what this is basically doing is it's going to generate a random number for body RND between 1 here and our sprite parts count, which is 3 for face 3, detail 3, body 3. And if we do that a couple more times, so let's do detail RND and face RND. And now once we've got that, we want to say get the image URLs. So we've already declared that. What we now want to do is pass a route in the project file. So we're in assets. First of all, let's grab body. So we'll do /body to go in the body directory, and then slash again body, because all the files start with body. Then we just want to pass in here our body RND and just add PNG to the end, and we'll just need to do this a couple more times. Bang and bang, and add in commas and get rid of this comma, don't need that. So just need to rename these wee parts now, detail, and this is detail RND, Same again for face, 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 face RND. So now that we've randomized the number, we've got the image URL using that number. We will first reset our images array just to clear any previous randomized clicks, just to again clear the canvas. Reset the image count for the same reason. We want to loop through each of these image URLs, basically so we can load the images before we render them. So for all of them, I'm just going to declare a new image. We'll assign SRC of that current iteration, and then just assign a new function here when that image is loaded. Let's see, we will increment the image count, and let's check now if the image count equals the length of the image URL array. So what we're basically saying here is, have we loaded all the images in the image URL array? If so, then let's just say render images, and at the end here, actually we want to use that images array, push in the new image that we created. Now we'll need to set this up, render images. So let's do that. So we'll come out of this function, we'll just create another function, render images, and first of all, let's just make sure this is all working. So I'm just going to put a wee alert in here, and we'll just say all images ready. And if we come back into the HTML, we want to assign this button, or we could just do it in the JavaScript using the ID. Let's do that. I'll just add a on-click event here, so document get element by ID. The element ID is random because that's the ID of the randomize button, and then on click we will tell it to execute create sprite. Let's do a hard refresh, control F5, click it, all images ready. So we are doing everything in here, we're getting to the right point, and now we just need to create that render images, basically tell the canvas context to draw our images onto the canvas. So let's do that now. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to upscale these so that they're visible. So I know that they're 16 by 16, which is why I'm hard coding 16 here, and I'm just going to upscale it by 10 places. So I'm just going to multiply that by 10. I'm going to set up center values, which would be my canvas width for X. I'll divide that by 2, and then I will take away well, these are 16 by 16 sprites, so the X and Y are going to be the same. If they weren't, you would need to do size X and size Y if it wasn't a square. Mine's are, and if you're following this, I recommend doing the same. Do the same for Y, but it's going to be canvas height. So this really is just center value of the canvas, which we'll use to position the sprites, just so they're sitting in the middle and they're not floating off to the side, which we don't want. Now I'm just going to do it for speed. So if you grab CTX, which we declared up the top as canvas context, you can use draw image, which will paint your image onto the canvas, and then images, and let's just do 0 just now. We'll position it at center X, center Y, and now we declare the width and the height, which is just size, which is the upscaled value. So let's just see if this renders just now, and it does. And you can see when I click randomize, it is going through, and there's a third one, it's going through different values. So that's that's cool, nice one. So the way that this works is the canvas will render each component on top of each other. So if let's show you, I'll just copy this line, right, and do 1 here. So 1 is my face, so, or is it? No, that's my detail. So you can see here, because I'm drawing image 0, which is the body, and then image 1 on top, which is the detail is shown up on top of the body. But if I reverse that around and draw the detail first and then the body, well, you won't see the detail because it'll be overlapping. So basically, think of it as if you're painting a picture, you're painting the background, and then the things that you render afterwards will be layered on top. So I'm just going to copy that once more, and that might look confusing because it's 0, 2, 1. I've knackered that a wee bit. Let's hard refresh here, and look at that, wee cool faces. Superb, man. So obviously now we need to export because these are doing nothing. So for that, let's just shrink that a wee bit. Copy this line, right, where you're assigning the on click for the random. And for that, we need these values here. So export sprite and export full. So I'll get rid of sprite for that one. So we need now, so this is all for sprite generation, sprite rendering. Now we need a wee method. So let's do that. Export the sprite. So let's call it export sprite. Let's just keep it like that. No point in overcomplicating things, right? So grab that export sprite and just bung it in for both of them, right? We'll do a wee bit of magic in a minute, okay? So what we want to do is we want to use a function called toBlob, which is used on the canvas, which basically just converts the canvas to a blob object, which from my understanding allows the canvas to be read as binary data, which is going to allow us to save it as a PNG. You can go mad and down a rabbit hole figuring out how it actually does it, but I'm not going to bother. If you're still following at this point, you're an absolute trooper, by the way. So thanks for watching. Let's get cracking on this last wee bit. So like I said, reference the canvas to blob is the method that we want to use, and we will call that blob object blob as a reference, put a semicolon outside here, and let's come up with a timestamp just to be used in the default name that we save the PNG as. So we're just getting current time, convert it to a string. We can then do I've missed a bit. We need an anchor here, so let's call it A, just temporary. So reference document, create element, and it's just going to be anchor, so A. Let's append the document body to A, and access the download on that anchor. So we'll do export, and let's pass in our timestamp. Add an href, which will just be the URL. We'll create an object URL using the blob, which is going to access the blob that we created earlier. We will click that anchor to initiate the download, and then just we'll get rid of it because we don't need it floating around the DOM. Right, so let's hard refresh this, right, and randomize. So we've got this wee character, and when both these buttons do the same thing just now, let's click export, and it should pop up like that. Brilliant. So save that, right? I'm going to open up my file explorer, just make sure we've got it. We do. Brilliant. So that's saved on my desktop. Excellent. But that's the full size, so that's the upscaled size. If you're wanting it in a game, obviously that's not going to quite cut it for you. So what we actually need to do here is update this export sprite a little bit. So we need to generate a new canvas. So for this, I'm going to add in a parameter here. That's full, now is sprite, nah. Hardest bit's naming the things, so is full size. Is full size, right, that makes sense. So we'll use this subbool. So what we're going to want to do is we only call as full the code that we've used so far, we only want to call if we want to export as full size. So I'm just going to highlight everything just now and do a quick format to tidy the code up. So now if we use full size button click, let's pass in true, and for the sprite one pass in false. So really now what you will see is if you run this again and you click export 16 by 16, nothing happens. If you do export full, it still works. So we need to write the logic for else. And I don't like that. It needs to be consistent. There we go. Right. So it's pretty much going to be the same we need to generate a new canvas though, so let's do that. So it's temporary var within this function. Let's just call it small canvas equals document dot create element, and it's a canvas. Oh shit! Maybe your quotes canvas. We need the context, so small context is small canvas. Get context. We want the 2D context. So that's the holy grail of working with canvas, is you're always going to have those two lines in your JavaScript. I mean, we've got them up the top as well, but that's for our main canvas. We're never actually going to see this canvas that we're writing to just now. We're just going to use it to export the sprite as a 16 by 16. So since we want it that size, let's declare the width and height as 16 by 16. Since we're not upscaling this sprite, we're keeping it as its native size. We don't need to worry about coming up with positioning, because it's just going to slot in like a block straight into that canvas anyway. We just need to now render these. So like I said, this can all be componentized and made a lot cleaner, but this is just cheap and cheerful, doing the job nice and simple. We don't need to declare the size because it's the native size of the sprite that we're using. We're just going to put the position to 0, 0. So that will draw it. And again, there's no point just now testing this here, because we will never see this canvas. We'll only see the export result. So let's just copy all this and chuck it here, but we need to reference small canvas. And is there anything else? Oh, here. Maybe you spotted this. When you're doing your draw image for the small canvas, you actually need to reference the small canvas, otherwise that won't work. So there's nothing else I can see here. That should do the trick. Let's run it and see what happens. So we've got a wee character. Let's export him 16 by 16. I'll save and I'll just open that up again by clicking, just to make sure. And there we go, there he is. And properties shows you that he's a 16 by 16 sprite. Let's do export full on the same character. I'll just do this for speed to open it up again. And look at that, there's a full-sized one. Nice one. One more thing, if you just want to tidy this up a little bit, you will spot when I first open the HTML that there's nothing there. So say you just want to create a sprite, as soon as the page loads, you can add an onload method to your body. So what's the name of our function? It's create sprite. So just call that here, add in your brackets, and then that means as soon as the body loads, it will start generating a sprite. So now if I just refresh here, there we go, and then instead of clicking the button, you can just refresh the page, whatever works best. So that is a really simple way of setting this up. If I go back here with a wee bit more work and maybe get a dedicated artist, or maybe you are an artist, you put a wee bit more work into the front end and also the sprites you're using, you really could come up with some creative ways to build sprites and sprite sheets for your game, or it can just give you, you know, a little bit of motivation, just a little bit of, you know, inspiration for characters or sprites or a style that you're trying to develop for your game or animation. So I hope that helped. Hope somebody found it useful. It's a nice wee project. I did this in an afternoon, and I've shown you how to make a pretty bare bones version of a sprite generator. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.